My name is Alexandra Morgan, 32 years old, and until last month, I thought family meant something to my brother, Nathan. We grew up sharing everything from worn out shoes to big dreams. When he announced his wedding to Stephanie, I was thrilled, even spent $3,000 on a designer dress to fit in with their crowd. I never imagined that instead of sitting with family, I would end up being vanished to the kitchen, treated like an unwanted stranger. If you are enjoying this story so far, please hit the like button and subscribe. It is to hear more stories like this one. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. Nathan and I grew up in a small two-bedroom apartment in Chicago. Our mom worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table after our dad left when I was 8 and Nathan was 10. Those early years bonded us in ways I thought could never be broken. We made a pact under our bunk beds, flashlights illuminating our serious child faces, that we would always have each other's backs. Always. During high school, I discovered my passion for computer science, while Nathan excelled in mathematics and economics. We both worked after-school jobs, saving every penny we could. When Nathan got accepted to college with a partial scholarship, I remember staying up all night helping him pack, both of us crying with a mixture of pride and fear of separation. I followed 2 years later, working full-time while taking night classes. My journey with Atlas Technologies began in my dorm room with nothing but a secondhand laptop and an idea. While other students partied on weekends, I was coding, building the foundation of what would become a multi-million-dollar company. Nathan was my first investor, contributing $500 from his campus job earnings. "I believe in you, Alex," he told me, squeezing my shoulder. "You're going to change the world." For 10 years, I poured everything into Atlas. There were months I couldn't afford rent nights. I slept on my office floor, and countless rejections from investors who couldn't see past my youth or gender. Through it all, Nathan and I spoke weekly. He chose a more traditional path, climbing the corporate ladder at Morgan. Finance. No relation to our family, despite the name coincidence. He was good at it, too, eventually becoming their youngest vice president. I still remember the day Atlas secured our first major contract. Nathan was my first call. "We did it," I sobbed into the phone. "Not you," he corrected me. "You did it. I always knew you would." That was the Nathan I knew and loved, the brother who celebrated my victories as if they were his own. Things began to change 3 years ago when Nathan met Stephanie Harrington at a company gala, daughter of real estate magnate Richard Harrington. Stephanie came from the kind of wealth that had vacation homes with names. Their courtship was rapid, and with each passing month I noticed subtle shifts in my brother. The first time I met Stephanie at a restaurant downtown, she looked at my practical business attire and asked if I had come straight from the office. Her tone made it clear this wasn't a compliment.
Weekly calls became monthly, then sporadic.
When we did talk, Nathan spoke differently, using terms like summer in the Hamptons and our club membership that had never been part of our vocabulary. I tried to be happy for him, truly. If he had found love and acceptance in Stephanie's world, who was I to judge? 6 months before the wedding, Atlas Technologies was approached by Morgan Finance about a potential collaboration. The timing seemed perfect, a $30 million contract that would benefit both companies and give me an opportunity to reconnect with my brother professionally. During our negotiations, Nathan seemed like his old self, impressed by what I'd built and enthusiastic about our companies working together. "This is huge for both of us," he said during one meeting. "Stephanie and I are looking at properties in Greenwich, and this deal would help secure my partnership track." I signed the contract with a sense of pride. Not only was Atlas continuing to grow, but I was able to help my brother advance in his career. It felt like we were that team again, looking out for each other, just like we promised all those years ago under the bunk beds. When their wedding invitation arrived, embossed thick cream paper with gold lettering, I was touched to see my full name, Alexandra Morgan, CEO of Atlas Technologies. Finally, I thought Stephanie was recognizing my accomplishments. I spent weeks finding the perfect gift, eventually commissioning a custom piece of artwork depicting the Chicago skyline where we grew up alongside the Manhattan skyline where they would begin their married life. I bought a designer dress that cost more than our childhood rent, had my hair and makeup professionally done, and even practiced small talk about topics I imagined would impress Stephanie's family. This wedding would be my chance to finally fit into Nathan's new world, to show Stephanie I could belong in their circle. Most importantly, it would be celebration of my brother finding happiness. How naive I was. How desperately, pathetically naive. The Preston Hotel in Manhattan exuded old money from its limestone facade to the torment in tailored uniforms. I arrived alone, having declined the invitation to bring a +1, since I wanted to focus on supporting Nathan. My heels clicked against marble floors as I entered the reception area, clutching my embossed invitation and oversized gift. The first sign something was wrong came at the welcome table. 2 women in matching dresses, clearly bridesmaids, scanned a list for my name. Morgan, are you sure you're at the right wedding?" one asked, eyebrow arched skeptically. "Yes, I'm Alexandra Morgan, the groom's sister," I clarified, trying to keep my voice light. Ooh, her surprise was palpable. "Sorry, Nathan never mentioned," she trailed off, exchanging glances with the other bridesmaid. I spotted Nathan across the room, handsome in his tuxedo, surrounded by men in similar attire. When our eyes met, his smile seemed strained. He excused himself and made his way over, accepting my hug with stiff arms. "Alex, you made it," he said, looking over my shoulder rather than at me. "Of course I made it. It's your wedding day." "I wouldn't miss it for anything," I replied, confused by his tone. "The venue is beautiful. Stephanie's parents insisted on the Prest and family tradition," he explained, already stepping back. "I should greet other guests. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes. Find your seat, okay?" He was gone before I could respond, swallowed by the crowd of people who apparently deserved more of his attention than his only sister. At the seating chart display, an elaborate affair with names written in calligraphy on small cards attached to a flowered trellis, I searched for my name. Family was typically seated in the front rows, but I couldn't find Alexandra Morgan anywhere in those sections. In fact, I couldn't find my name at all. At "Excuse me," I approached an older woman who appeared to be directing guests. "I can't seem to find my seating assignment." She glanced at me with the practiced smile of someone who had mastered the art of polite dismissal. "And you are Alexander Morgan, Nathan's sister," something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, followed by what looked uncomfortably like pity. "Oh yes, Miss Morgan, there was a special arrangement for you. The ceremony will begin shortly. Why don't you take any available seat in the back for now?" The back? I wanted to protest, but was interrupted by the arrival of a large group of guests who immediately commanded the woman's attention. I retreated, confused and increasingly uneasy. The ceremony itself was beautiful in that carefully orchestrated way that speaks of professional wedding planners and unlimited budgets. I sat in the last row, watching as my brother promised his life to a woman who just had never once made an effort to know me. Their vows spoke of joining families of 2 becoming one while I sat apart, already being erased from the narrative of Nathan's life. During the photographer's session afterward, I stood awkwardly to the side. When group photos were being arranged, Stephanie's mother called for family only, and no one, not even Nathan, thought to include me in that category. I watched as he posed with his new in-laws, their collective blonde heads and confident smiles, creating a picture of familial perfection that had no space for a dark-haired tech CEO who grew up on the wrong side of town. I made my way to the cocktail hour alone, accepting a glass of champagne from a and passing server, and positioning myself near a column where I could observe, without being too obviously isolated. Conversations swirled around me, discussions of summer homes and boarding schools, and mutual friends from clubs I would never belong to. That's her. I overheard a woman whisper, not quite quietly enough. The sister. Apparently she runs some sort of lost as they moved away, but their judging glances remained like a physical touch against my skin. The cocktail hour stretched endlessly. Nathan circulated through the crowd with Stephanie on his arm, stopping to chat with everyone it seemed except me. Once our eyes met across the room and I raised my glass in a silent toast, he nodded almost imperceptibly before being pulled into another conversation. As guests began moving toward the ballroom for the reception, I approached a staff member to ask about the seating arrangements. I'm Alexandra Morgan, the groom's sister. I explained for what felt like the 100th time that day. I need to find my table. The young man consulted his tablet, swiping through screens. His expression changed subtly. Let me double-check that for you, Ms. Morgan. He stepped away to confer with another staff member, their hushed conversation, punctuated by concerned glances in my direction. Finally, he returned. If you could follow me, please. I expected him to lead me to the ballroom, where round tables were elegantly set with towering flower arrangements and glittering crystal. Instead, we turned down a service corridor away from the celebration. There must be some mistake, I said, stopping in my track. The reception is that way. I'm just following the instructions I was given, ma'am, he replied, not meeting my eyes. Your seating is through here. A terrible suspicion began forming in my mind. But it seemed too outrageous to be true. Nathan wouldn't allow that. Not to his sister. Not to the person who had been by his side through everything. But as we continued down that corridor, the sounds of the celebration growing, fainter behind us, I realized I no longer knew what my brother would or wouldn't allow. The hallway opened into the hotel's massive kitchen, a bustling space of stainless steel and controlled chaos. Chefs called out orders while staff arranged delicate appetizers on serving platters. The noise, the heat, the frantic energy, all of it assaulted my senses as I stood frozen in disbelief. Your table is just over there, the staff member said, pointing to a small, round table set up in a corner, partially hidden behind a service station. A single place setting awaited me, complete with a name card that read simply, A. Morgan, in plain type, not the elegant calligraphy afforded to the other guests. This cannot be right, I said, my voice barely audible over the kitchen noise. There has to be a mistake. The young man looked genuinely uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan. These are the arrangements we were given. I can try to speak with the wedding planner, if you like. I nodded numbly, watching as he disappeared back through the doors. Alone in the unfamiliar territory of the kitchen, I pulled out my phone and texted Nathan. There seems to be confusion about my seating. I'm in the kitchen. Please help clarify. The minutes ticked by with no response. Around me, kitchen staff worked efficiently, occasionally casting curious glances my way. One chef, noticing my distress, approached with a concerned expression. Are you all right, Ms.? Are you supposed to be back here? Apparently I am, I replied, showing him my name card. I'm the groom's sister. His eyebrows shot up in surprise, followed by a flash of something that looked like embarrassment on my behalf. That doesn't seem right. Let me see if I can find out what's happening. Before he could leave, the kitchen door swung open and Stephanie appeared, resplendent in her designer gown, her expression souring when she spotted me. Alexandra, she said, her tone clipped. I was told you were causing a disruption. Disruption? I echoed in disbelief. Stephanie, there's been a mistake with the seating arrangements. They've put me in the kitchen. She glanced at the small table, then back at me, her face a perfect mask of practice superiority. No mistake. Space in the ballroom is limited. We had to make certain accommodations. Accommodations, I repeated, struggling to process her words. I'm your husband's only sister. How could there not be room for me with the family? Look, Stephanie said, lowering her voice, though not her disdainful expression. This wedding includes some very important people, business connections, social relationships that matter to our future. The seating was arranged according to priority. The implication that I wasn't a priority struck like a physical blow. Nathan agreed to this. Nathan understands how these things work now. She replied, if you're uncomfortable with the arrangements, you're certainly free to leave. I stood straighter, forcing myself to maintain composure. I'd like to speak with my brother. He's busy greeting our important guests right now, she said, emphasizing the word in a way that clearly excluded me from that category. Then, as if delivering a final verdict, she added, loudly enough for nearby kitchen staff to hear, the help eats in the kitchen, Alexandra. I assumed used to service entrances given your background. The kitchen fell silent, everyone pretending to be absorbed in their tasks while obviously listening to every word. My face burned with humiliation as I spotted Nathan hovering in the doorway, behind his new wife, clearly having heard everything, yet choosing to remain silent. Our eyes met across the kitchen. In his, I saw conflict, perhaps even a flash of shame, but not enough of either to compel him to speak up. He looked away, first placing a hand on Stephanie's back as if to usher her out. Nathan, I called, my voice breaking. Is this really what you want? He hesitated, glanced at Stephanie, then back at me. It's just for today, Alex. Please don't make a scene. With that, they were gone, leaving me standing alone in a kitchen full of strangers who had just witnessed my complete rejection by the only family I had left. One of the sous chefs approached cautiously, offering a glass of water. I'm really sorry about that, she said quietly. For what it's worth, none of us think you should be back here. Her kindness nearly broke me. I accepted the water with trembling hands, forcing back tears that threatened to spill over. Thank you, I managed. We have to serve the first course soon. She continued glancing at her colleagues, but we'll try to give you some privacy. That corner table has a partial wall, at least. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As the kitchen staff returned to their duties, I sank into the chair at my designated table, staring at the empty plate before me. The pristine white napkin mocked me with its careful folding, a parody of the respect I'd been denied. A server silently placed an appetizer before me, the same one being served to the important people in the ballroom. The gesture, while kind, only emphasized the absurdity of my situation. Here I sat, CEO of a successful technology company, eating my brother's wedding dinner. Alone in a hotel kitchen while the celebration continued without me, just beyond the swinging doors. Through those doors, I caught occasional glimpses of the reception, the sparkling lights, the laughter, the clinked glasses for kisses, all the traditions I should have been part of as family. Instead, I watched from the periphery, like a ghost at my own brother's wedding. With each passing minute, the hurt crystallized into something harder, colder, more resolved. This wasn't just about a seating arrangement. This was Nathan making a choice, a clear statement about where I fit in his new life. Nowhere. I thought about leaving, just walking out and going home, letting them continue their perfect celebration without the inconvenience of my presence. But something kept me rooted to that kitchen chair, a growing sense that I owed myself more than a quiet exit. After picking up my appetizer, I excused myself and found a quiet hallway, leading to a nervous bathroom. Once inside, I locked the door and finally allowed the tears to come, silent and burning down my cheeks. I stared at my reflection in the industrial mirror. Mascara, slightly smudged, lipstick, still perfect hair, arranged in an elegant updo that had cost more than I would normally spend on a week's worth of lunches. All of it for what? To impress people who had already decided I wasn't worth knowing? To fit into a world that had no intention of making space for me. Memories cascaded through my mind like falling dominoes. Nathan holding my hand. On my first day of school, when I was too scared to go inside. Me staying up all night helping him study for his college entrance exams. The time I pawned my laptop to lend him rent money during his first unpaid internship. The Christmas we could only afford to give each other handmade cards, but laughed until we cried because we were together and that was enough. When had that brother disappeared? When had he become someone who would stand silently while his wife banished his sister to the kitchen? And then there was Atlas. My company built from nothing but determination and countless sleepless nights. The $30 million contract with Morgan Finance had been finalized just 3 weeks ago. A deal that would significantly boost Nathan's standing at his firm. He had personally thanked me for looking out for him, acknowledging that being associated with a successful deal of that magnitude would accelerate his path to partnership. I had signed that contract partly because I believed in the business opportunity, but largely because I wanted to help my brother, the brother who now couldn't even assure I had a proper seat at his wedding. I splashed cold water on my face, careful not to completely ruin my makeup, and took several deep breaths. What were my options here? I could leave, preserving what little dignity I had left. I could confront Nathan more directly, potentially causing a scene at his wedding. Or I could swallow my pride, return to my kitchen table, and pretend that being treated this way was acceptable. None of those options felt right. At Atlas, one of our core values was respect. We respected our clients, our partners, and most importantly, our team members, regardless of their position. I had built a company culture where the newest intern was treated with the same consideration as the most senior executive. I would never allow anyone at Atlas to be demeaned or made to feel less than, worthy of basic dignity. Why then was I allowing it to happen to myself? The realization hit me with startling clarity. This wasn't just about a wedding seating arrangement. This was about Nathan endorsing a value system completely counter to everything we had grown up believing. By allowing Stephanie and her family to treat me this way, he was making a statement about what and truly mattered to him now. And by continuing the business relationship between Atlas and Morgan Finance, I was financially supporting that same value system. I straightened my shoulders and looked myself directly in the eyes. You built Atlas on respect and integrity, I whispered to my reflection. Don't compromise those values now, not even for Nathan. Decision made, I reapplied my lipstick, fixed my mascara, and left the bathroom with renewed purpose. As I walked back toward the reception, I passed the gift table where my carefully chosen artwork sat, still wrapped. For a moment, I considered taking it back, but decided against it. Let it stand as a reminder of the sister Nathan once had, the shared history he was choosing to erase. I re-entered the reception area just as dinner was being served. The ballroom glittered with candles and crystal round tables filled with elegantly dressed guests. At the head table, Nathan and Stephanie sat surrounded by her family and their closest friends. No place for me there, not even as the only blood relative the groom had present. As I hesitated at the periphery, a man approached, champagne flute in hand. Alexander Morgan! I thought that was you, William Crawford Morgan Finance. He extended his hand, which I automatically shook. I have to say, we're all incredibly excited about the Atlas partnership. Nathan has been singing your praises in the boardroom. Has he? I replied, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. Absolutely. In fact, this contract is what convinced the partners to fast-track his promotion. Between us, he'll be announced as the youngest partner in the firm's history next month. Crawford lowered his voice conspiratorially. A lot of that is riding on the Atlas deal's success. I thanked him for the information and watched as he rejoined his table, completely unaware that he had just handed me the final piece of the puzzle. Nathan hadn't just been using our childhood connection to secure a business deal. He had been actively leveraging my success to advance his career while simultaneously allowing me to be humiliated by his new family. The beautiful wedding dinner continued around me, but I stood apart from it all, invisible, yet suddenly seeing everything with perfect clarity. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I waited until the main course had been served, and Nathan stepped away from the head table to speak with some guests. Making my way across the room, I intercepted him near one of the floral arrangements, placing a hand lightly on his arm to get his attention. "Alex?" he said, startled. "I was going to come find you after dinner, were you?" I asked quietly. "Because it seems like you've been actively avoiding me all day." He glanced around nervously as if worried someone might see us talking. "Look about the seating arrangement. I know it's not ideal, but Stephanie's family had a very specific vision for the reception, and there were some last-minute changes with the table assignments. Last-minute changes that resulted in your only sister being seated in the kitchen." I kept my voice low but firm. "Nathan, do you realize how that looks? How that feels?" He had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It's complicated, Alex. The Harringtons have certain expectations, certain ways of doing things. Stephanie's father has connections that are important for my career. More important than your family. More important than basic respect. You don't understand," he insisted. "This is just one day, one dinner. In the grand scheme of things, does it really matter where you sit?" I stared at him, this stranger wearing my brother's face. "Yes, Nathan, it matters. It matters because it shows exactly where I rank in your life now." "You're overreacting," he said dismissively. "This isn't personal." "Not personal," I repeated incredulously. "Your wife told me, and I quote, 'The help eats in the kitchen.' How is that not personal?" Exclamation point. He wins. Stephanie can be blunt sometimes, but she didn't mean it like that. How exactly did she mean it then? Nathan ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, messing it up in a gesture so reminiscent of the boy he used to be that it made my heart ache. "Look, Alex, the truth is, you don't really fit in with this crowd. These people come from a different world. Old money, old connections. Your company is impressive, sure, but it's new. Different social circles." His words struck like physical blows. "I don't fit in," I repeated slowly. "I see. And when exactly did you decide that your sister's worth was determined by whether she fits in with your wife's social circle?" "That's not what I meant." He backpedaled, but his eyes told a different story. He had meant exactly that. I reached into my purse and took out my phone, maintaining eye contact with Nathan as I did so. "You know, I've been thinking about our company's partnership." His expression shifted, immediately professional interest replacing familial discomfort. "The Atlas contract, what about it?" Without breaking eye contact, I dialed a number I knew by heart after 2 rings. A familiar voice answered. "Michael, it's Alexandra," I said clearly, watching Nathan's face. "I need you to cancel the $30 million contract with Morgan Finance immediately." Nathan's face drained of color so rapidly, I thought he might faint. "Alex, what are you doing?" he hissed, reaching for my phone. I stepped back, still listening to my CFO's confused questions. "Yes, I'm certain. Draft the termination paperwork tonight and deliver it first thing Monday morning. Cite irreconcilable differences in company values." "Alex, stop this," Nathan pleaded, real panic in his voice now. "You can't do this." I covered the phone briefly. "Actually, I can. I'm the CEO, remember? The help who built a $30 million company? You apparently need more than I need you. Is everything all right here? Stephanie had materialized beside us, her wedding gown rustling expensively as she took in the scene with narrowed eyes. Everything's fine, Nathan said quickly. Just a small family discussion. It doesn't look fine, she observed, coolly looking pointedly at my phone, where Michael was still asking questions. You're right, Stephanie. It's not fine, I agreed. I was just informing Nathan that Atlas Technologies will be terminating our contract with Morgan Finance, effective immediately. Her perfectly made-up face registered shock, then fury. You can't do that. That contract is vital to Nathan's partnership track. Yes, I've just learned how important it is, I replied calmly, which makes it the perfect consequence for today's hospitality. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're going to damage a multi-million-dollar deal because of hurt feelings over a seating arrangement? No, Stephanie. I'm terminating a business relationship because I've realized our companies have fundamentally different values. Atlas only partners with organizations that demonstrate respect and integrity, qualities that seem to be in short supply here today. Nathan was practically vibrating with tension beside me. Alex, please, you don't understand what this will do to my career. I understand perfectly, I responded, returning my attention to the phone. Yes, Michael, I'm still here. Please also prepare a press release explaining that Atlas seeks business partnerships that align with our core values of respect and ethical treatment of all individuals. Stephanie's face had gone from furious to calculating in seconds. Now wait, she said, her voice suddenly honeyed. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Of course we value you as Nathan's sister. Perhaps we can arrange for you to join the family table for dessert. The transparent attempt to salvage the business deal without acknowledging the real issue only strengthened my resolve. Too late, I said simply. The contract is being terminated as we speak. You vindictive bitch! She hissed, dropping all pretense of politeness. You're doing this to punish us. No, Stephanie. I'm doing this to maintain my self-respect. I turned to Nathan, whose face had gone from pale to action. I hope your new family is worth what you've sacrificed today. I finished the call with Michael, confirming once more that the termination should proceed immediately, regardless of any penalties. Around us, guests had begun to notice the tension of few nearby conversations, quieting as people strained to... Over here, Alex, please. Nathan tried one more time, a genuine desperation in his voice. This contract is everything. The partners will blame me if it falls through. I could lose my shot at partnership completely. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old connection, the instinct to protect my brother that had been part of me since childhood. But then I remembered him standing silently while Stephanie dismissed me, remembered him explaining that I simply didn't fit in with his new life. You should have thought of that before you let your wife seat me in the kitchen, I said quietly. Actions have consequences, Nathan. That's something our mother taught us both. Remember? With that, I turned and walked away, head held high despite the tears threatening again. Behind me, I could hear Stephanie's furious whispers and Nathan's increasingly desperate responses. Several guests were openly staring now, the perfect wedding reception disrupted by the unwelcome intrusion of consequences. As I reached the exit, I heard Stephanie's father's authoritative voice asking what was happening. I didn't stay to hear Nathan's explanation of how he had just lost a $30 million contract by allowing his sister to be treated like an unwanted service provider at his wedding. Some lessons are expensive. This one would cost him exactly what he had decided I was worth. Nothing. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of streetlights and suppressed emotion. Once inside, I kicked off the expensive heels, unzipped the designer dress, and finally allowed myself to fall apart completely. I sobbed until my throat was raw, mourning not just today's humiliation, but loss of the brother I thought I knew. My phone began buzzing almost immediately. Nathan's name appeared over and over, interspersed with calls from numbers I recognized as Morgan finance executives. I silenced it, unable to face any more confrontation tonight. Instead, I ran a bath, submerging myself in the hot water, as if it could wash away the memory of Stephanie's nearing face, of Nathan's silent complicity. When I finally emerged, pruned and exhausted, there were 27 missed calls and 34 text messages. I forced myself to read Nathan's texts, each more desperate than the last. "Alex, please call me back. We need to talk about this. You're overreacting. Come back and we can fix this. The partners are already calling me. You can't do this. This is my career, Alex, my future. Stephanie is sorry. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. Please don't punish me for one mistake. You're ruining everything. Is that what you wanted?" The last one made me laugh bitterly through fresh tears. I was ruining everything after being treated like an embarrassing secret to be, hidden away. I was the villain for refusing to financially support the people who had humiliated me. I turned my phone off completely and crawled into bed, emotionally drained beyond words. Morning brought no relief. When I finally turned my phone back on, the barrage continued. Voicemails from Nathan alternated between anger and pleading. Texts from unknown numbers that I assumed were his colleagues or Stephanie's family members. Even my personal assistant had messages asking about urgent calls from Morgan. Finance executives trying to reach me. I listened to one voicemail from Nathan, his voice thick with what sounded like tears. "Alex, please. The partners called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They're saying this reflects badly on my judgment. Everything I've worked for is in jeopardy. Please, I'm begging you, reconsider. It was just a stupid seating chart." Don't destroy my career over this. Just a stupid seating chart. As if the issue was the physical location and not what it represented. As if I should accept being publicly categorized as the help by my brother's new wife, without consequence. I deleted the rest of the messages without listening, and called Michael instead. "Did you deliver the termination notice?" I asked when he answered. "First thing this morning," he confirmed. "They're not taking it well. I've had 3 calls from their legal department and 1 from their CEO. Any valid legal objections?" "None whatsoever," Michael assured me. "The contract has a standard termination clause. We'll pay the penalty as discussed, but they have no grounds to force us to continue the partnership." Good. Draft responses declining any attempts to renegotiate. Atlas will be seeking new partners who better align with our company values. "Already on it," Michael replied. "If you don't mind my asking what happened, this deal was your baby." I hesitated, unwilling to air family dirty laundry even to my trusted CFO. Let's just say I received some clarity about Morgan Finance's corporate culture, and decided it wasn't compatible with Atlas after all. By midweek, the professional consequences for Nathan were becoming clear. A former colleague who still spoke to me mentioned that Nathan had been called into multiple closed-door meetings with senior partners. The $30 million Atlas contract had been prominently featured in their quarterly projections, and its sudden termination had created a significant shortfall. More personally painful were the messages from extended family members who had somehow heard versions of what happened. Most expressed shock and support for me, but a few suggested I was being petty and should fix things with Nathan for the sake of family harmony. As if I was the one who had broken our family bond. As if the responsibility for repair fell to the person who had been wronged rather than the one who had done the wronging. My Aunt Susan, our mother's sister, called me directly. I heard what happened at the wedding, she said without preamble. That girl always did have more money than sense. Are you okay? Her simple concern broke through the protective shell I'd been building. Not really, I admitted. I keep thinking about Mom, about what she sacrificed for us, how she taught us to easily value family above everything. Nathan just threw all that away like it meant nothing. People change, Aunt Susan said sadly. Sometimes not for the better. But you did the right thing standing up for yourself. Marion would have been proud of you. Hearing my mother's name brought fresh tears. She had passed away just after I secured my first major funding for Atlas. Long before Nathan met Stephanie. I often wondered if her presence would have prevented this rift, if her influence would have kept Nathan grounded in the values of our upbringing. At work, I threw myself into identifying new potential partners to replace the Morgan Finance contract. My team rallied around me, working overtime to research alternatives. No one questioned my decision to terminate the deal, though I had given them only the vaguest explanation about incompatible corporate values. By Friday, an unexpected development. 3 companies who had previously been hesitant to work with Atlas suddenly expressed renewed interest. One executive candidly admitted that my decision to walk away from such a large contract on principle had impressed them. It shows integrity, she told me during our call. Any company that values its principles enough to put them before profit is a company we want to partner with. Meanwhile, Nathan's professional situation continued to deteriorate. According to my sources, the partners at Morgan Finance were questioning not just his judgment in the lost contract, but his overall suitability for partnership. One particularly damaging rumor suggested he had misrepresented his influence over Atlas, implying to his superiors that his family connection guaranteed the contract's security. His personal life wasn't faring much better. A mutual acquaintance mentioned seeing Nathan and Stephanie having a heated argument at a restaurant, her voice rising enough for nearby diners to hear her, accusing him of not handling his sister properly and jeopardizing their future. That night alone in my apartment, I received one more text from Nathan. I hope you're happy now that you've ruined everything. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 6 months passed, each day a small step toward healing. I found a therapist who specialized in family estrangement, a term I had never imagined would apply to my relationship with Nathan. Dr. Winters helped me process not just the wedding incident, but the gradual erosion of our once unbreakable bond. What you're experiencing is grief, she explained during one session. You're mourning the relationship you thought you had, the brother you would always be there for you. I keep replaying it in my mind, I admitted, wondering if I overreacted, if I should have just accepted the seating arrangement to keep the peace. Would you allow anyone who works for you at Atlas to be treated that way? She asked. Of course not. Then why would you accept it for yourself? Setting boundaries isn't punishing others, Alexandra. It's protecting yourself. Those words became my mantra on difficult days when doubt crept in. I wasn't punishing Nathan. I was protecting myself from people who had clearly demonstrated they didn't value me. Professionally, Atlas was thriving. The termination of the Morgan Finance contract had created a temporary setback, but ultimately led to 3 new partnerships that collectively exceeded the important original deal's value. More importantly, these new partners shared our company values of respect and integrity. We launched a new initiative supporting first-generation entrepreneurs, providing mentorship and seed funding to young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who had innovative ideas but lacked access to traditional investment channels. The program, which I named Roots to Rise, was my way of honoring the journey that had brought me here. Meanwhile, Nathan's career trajectory had stalled dramatically. He remained at Morgan Finance, but had been passed over for partnership. According to industry gossip, the loss of the Atlas contract had raised serious questions about his judgment and relationship management skills. 8 months after the wedding, I received an email from him. Unlike his previous communications, this one contained no accusations, no demands, no attempts to make me feel responsible for his situation. "Alex," it began simply, "I've spent months thinking about what happened at the wedding, and everything that led up to it. I was wrong, not just about the seating arrangement, but about the way I allowed Stephanie and her family to treat you. I failed you as a brother, and no career advancement or social acceptance could ever justify that. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you." I read the email multiple times, searching for the manipulation hidden between the lines, the subtle attempt to reestablish the business connection. But there was none. Just a simple acknowledgement of wrongdoing and an apology that asked for nothing in return. I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to hold on to the brother I had lost. Dr. Winters helped me navigate these conflicting emotions. "Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to resume the relationship as it was," she reminded me. "It means freeing yourself from the burden of anger. You can forgive without forgetting or exposing yourself to further harm." 3 weeks later, I sent a brief reply. "Thank you for your apology. I hope you're well." It wasn't much, but it was all I could honestly offer at that point. Around the same time, I heard through mutual connections that Nathan and Stephanie were having serious marital problems. The perfect society wedding had given way to a marriage strained by disappointment and blame. Stephanie had apparently expected Nathan's career to advance more rapidly, providing the lifestyle her family had led her to believe was her birthright. When the partnership didn't materialize, tension escalated. I took no pleasure in their struggles. Despite everything, I didn't wish unhappiness on Nathan. I just wanted him to recognize the values he had compromised in pursuit of acceptance from people who would never truly see his worth. A year after the wedding, an unexpected name appeared on my office caller ID, Nathan. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Alex," he said, his voice uncertain. "Thank you for taking my call. What can I do for you, Nathan?" I kept my tone neutral, protective barrier still firmly in place. "Nothing. I don't need anything," he replied quickly. I'm in town for a conference and wondered if you might be willing to meet for coffee, just to talk." I considered declining, protecting the peace I had worked so hard to establish, but curiosity and perhaps a lingering hope prompted me to agree to a brief meeting at a cafe near my office. When I arrived, Nathan was already there, looking simultaneously familiar and like a stranger. He had lost weight, and faint lines had appeared around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. Stephanie and I separated 3 months ago. He said after our initial awkward greetings, "The divorce will be finalized next month." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. "Don't be. It was necessary." He stared into his coffee. "After what happened with you, I started seeing things differently, noticing patterns. I had been ignoring the way she spoke to servers at restaurants, the comments about people she considered beneath her. I realized that the woman I married believed that some people matter and others don't, based on arbitrary standards I never used to care about. I listened silently, neither encouraging nor discouraging his confidence. I thought I wanted that he continued. The status, the connections, the exclusivity of it all. But it was empty, Alex. And it cost me the one person who had always been there for me, who supported me, not because of what I could provide, but simply because we were family. It wasn't about the seating arrangement, I said finally. It was about what it represented. I know that now, he nodded. I let myself become someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued appearance over substance, who cared more about impressing strangers than honoring family. We talked for nearly 2 hours, careful and measured at first, then gradually, finding moments of the easy connection we once shared. Nathan told me he had started therapy, was reconnecting with values our mother had instilled in us, and was considering a career change away from investment banking altogether. I shared stories about Atlas's new initiatives, particularly Roots to Rise. His genuine interest and thoughtful questions reminded me of the brother I had grown up with, the one who had always believed in me, even when no one else did. As we prepared to leave, Nathan hesitated. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I know trust has to be rebuilt, but I hope is right to you. I can't make promises, I told him honestly, but I'm open to small steps. It was all I could offer, and he seemed to understand that it was significant nonetheless. In the months that followed, those small steps accumulated. Gradually, occasional texts, a brief lunch here and there, Nathan volunteering as a mentor for the Roots to Rise program, working with young entrepreneurs who reminded him of me at the beginning of my journey. The relationship we're building now is different from what we had before. More mindful, more intentional, with clearly established boundaries. I may never fully trust him the way I once did, but I found peace in accepting that relationships evolve, sometimes, through painful transformations. The most valuable lesson from this experience wasn't about family loyalty or even self-respect, though those were important. It was about knowing my worth and refusing to compromise it. For anyone, even, those I love most. It was about recognizing that true connection can only exist where there is mutual respect. At Atlas, this philosophy continues to guide every decision. We partner only with companies that demonstrate respect for all individuals, regardless of their position or background. We've become known in the industry not just for our technological innovations, but for our unwavering commitment to human dignity. As for Nathan, he's finding his own path back to the values that truly matter. Recently, he mentioned applying for a position with a nonprofit focused on financial literacy for underserved communities. I want to use my skills to help people like us like we used to be, he explained, to make a difference beyond just accumulating wealth. I don't know if we'll ever recapture the closeness we once had. Some fractures leave permanent marks even after healing. But I'm at peace with that uncertainty, secure in the knowledge that I honored my own worth when it mattered most. If you've ever found yourself diminished or disrespected by people who should value you, remember that you have the power to walk away. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you insist on being treated. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply refusing to accept far less than you deserve. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family members who didn't value you? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, never let anyone see you in the kitchen unless you're the chef.